Distinguished participants, I'd like to welcome you all. My name is Özlem Cinemre. I'm from the Bank of Development and Investment of Turkey. I'm responsible for Treasury and Financial Institutions and Wholesale Banking. I'm Deputy Director Manager. I'd like to extend my greetings and regard to each and every one of you on my behalf and on behalf of my bank. This is just an information session for the grant program, and this is the fourth of this series of events for a grant program presentation. Actually, this Formal Employment Creation Project grant program is financed by the European Union under the Facility for Refugees in Turkey and implemented by the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey, TKYB, abbreviated as TKYB, under the management of the World Bank. And this is making us very happy and excited on all aspects, many aspects, because of its scale, it is larger than many other grant schemes. As regards its scope, it has a very broad scope because not only for small-scale enterprises, small, medium, and large-scale enterprises are all addressed and appealed through this grant program. Nearly all sectors, except some excluded sectors, are covered. And as regards its overall objective, it is very important for its contribution to the settlement of the barriers such as unemployment issues that are hindering the sustainable development of Turkey. So it is a very ideal program to find some solutions, because if you look at the subcomponents of this project, we have women employment and refugee employment as well, which provides a great diversification to provide some solutions to be suggested in these areas. Because of all these features of this program, this grant program will be very useful and fruitful for you, for Turkey, and for your enterprises, and as a result, as a whole, for Turkey. And we are sure that we believe that this is going to provide very important outputs. In this grant program presentation sessions over the Zoom are held, and also we organized a physical meeting apart from the online meetings, but it was of course restricted due to COVID. But the potential applicants, questions and their need for clarifications will be addressed through this session in order to promote the program, inform you about the program application process, because you may be frightened because several documents are requested. We are here to eliminate any clarifications and question marks in your minds. Please share all your questions and need for clarifications with us, because these platforms are the most ideal platforms for that end. And also in Turkish, we have Kayist website. www.kayist.org is the website of this project. The abbreviation stands for the title of this project in Turkish. You can find all the details, dates, and deadlines, and all the documents and presentations shared on that website. So this is the fourth presentation session, and we will have two more. And if you participate in those meetings as well. So we hope that this is going to be a fruitful meeting for all of us, and will be useful for us. Hand over to Ayşegül Çerçi to the project implementation unit. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Özlem Hanım. My name is Ayşegül Çerçi from the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey. I'm responsible for cooperation, development cooperation, wholesale banking. I'm in charge of that department. I'm director, and my unit is also project implementation unit. In this program, first, I'd like to inform you about the flow of this session. There is Arabic and English simultaneous interpretation service in this meeting. In the right bottom corner of your screen, you can adjust the size of your screen, and also you can adjust the quality of the video, because sometimes participants told us that they had some quality issue in the videos. I just wanted to make these reminders. So in this program, how we proceed is, first, Caner Kar, Naz Karabalı, our project expert, will deliver a project presentation, and then we're going to show you our project's website very briefly. At the last part of this session, we will show you the electronic application platform step by step. you are planning to apply and if you start the application process, but you saved your applications as a draft on the system to provide you guidance, we will show you the application platform step by step. And at the end, if we have time left, we would like to answer your questions. At quiz.org, on our project website, as mentioned by Özlem Hanım, you can find our presentation in Turkish and English, and also minutes of the meeting, and also application guidelines, frequently asked questions, and also implementation, application form, and a work plan. I mean, on that application platform, every step that you can see on that platform can be found in the application document. But today, we will provide you further information, and we will try to answer your questions to clarify your issues. I'd like to hand over to Caner Bey, to be followed by Naz Hanım, and then we will manage the session together. I wish you a fruitful meeting all. Thank you. Over to you, Caner Bey. Thank you very much, Ayşegül Hanım, distinguished participants. I'd like to welcome you all of you to the Formal Employment Creation Project Grant Program presentation. My name is Caner Kar from Development and Investment Bank of Turkey in the Project Implementation Unit, and we are going to make this presentation with Naz Hanım. Without further ado, I'd like to start my presentation. Before this presentation, I'd like to make a small reminder. Actually, this presentation is also includes the Turkish translations of the grant program application guideline and its annexes at the website of the project. And this is a summary form and a short form, so you can visit our application guideline for further information. This is the presentation plan. There are 4 parts of the presentation. In the first part, we will describe the project, to be followed by the components of the project. And then in the third and fourth part of this presentation, we will inform you about the general framework of the grant component and also the conditions of the grant program and implementation conditions of the grant program. Formal employment creation project, just like in other projects and programs, has an objective, and the objective of the project is to enhance the conditions for formal job creation by firms operating in growing economic sectors with high employment potential and located in selected 24 provinces, with high incidence of Syrians under temporary protections for the benefit of Turkish citizens and refugees. And the project will enhance the formal employment and providing financial assistance to the relevant enterprises. And this project is funded by the European Union under the Facility for Refugees in Turkey, and the total budget of the project is 396 million euros. And there are 3 components. The first component is World Bank loan, and there are 2 sub-components under component 1. In the first part, sub-loans will be provided by the TKYB directly through direct loans to large enterprises amounting 125 million euros. And the second one is Apex loans through wholesale banking, funding SMEs. And in doing that, TKYBs have some participating financial institutions. Through participating financial institutions, we're going to provide the Apex loans. And the second component is grants component. Today, we're going to focus more intensively on this component. And through this grant component, both for large enterprises and SMEs, financial support will be provided amounting to 70 million euros. And the final and third component is technical and institutional support. But both for the loan and both for the grants, such support will be provided. In the loan, the beneficiaries and the participating financial institutions' capacity building activities will be carried out. And the sub-grant beneficiaries and TKYBs capacity building activities will be carried out for the grant component. Of course, this program also has some important implementation principles. The first one is environmental and social management framework. All components of the project are implemented in accordance with the World Bank environmental and social standards, and all the beneficiaries are expected to comply with that. And also the TKYB's environmental and social management framework, stakeholder engagement plan, labor management procedures, and other relevant World Bank and TKYB policies and regulations are expected to be obeyed and complied by the beneficiaries. And the other one is technical and institutional capacity building support. This is the third component of the project. Under this component, the beneficiaries of the loan and also grants and TK5Bs and participating financial institutions capacity building activities will be supported. And the third one is women inclusive firms. Actually, this is a technical term used by the World Bank. What does women inclusive company mean? What are the conditions and criteria for that? There are three criteria. If the companies fulfill these criteria, they are considered to be women inclusive companies. If a company has at least one female shareholder with properly documented representation and management powers, or has at least one female senior manager, or has a female representation of at least 25% in the middle management, or employs women at a higher rate than the average observed in the relevant sector, that company shall be considered as a women-inclusive company. The first component is loan component, and the first part of this loan component is direct lending. TKYB is providing investment and working capital loans directly to eligible large enterprises. Large enterprises are the ones that employ equal to or more than 250 employees. And these companies are going to be supported through investment and working capital loans by TKYB. And the large enterprises' financial viability is going to be evaluated. They are expected to have a consolidated record of job creation, and they are expected to want to expand their business and generate markets. Through direct lending, the maximum sub-loan amount for a sub-project is 5 million euros and 15 million euros for an eligible firm. More information can be requested from TKYB Corporate Banking and Project Finance Department for this direct lending, for further information about direct lending, and you can contact the relevant department through this website or you see on the screen. Apex lending is different from direct lending because participating financial institutions will provide this lending, and TKYB does not have any branch network. For that reason, in the selected provinces, project provinces, in order to reach out to enterprises, we are using the leasing institutions, and SMEs who employ less than 250 employees will be supported through Apex lending, and the maximum sub-loan amount for a sub-project is 3 million euros and 6 million euros for an eligible firm. And there are 6 participating financial institutions that we have contracted as TKYB, which are Yapı Kredi Leasing, Vakıf Leasing, Garanti Leasing, QNB Finance Leasing, AK Leasing, and İş Leasing. And regarding Apex lending, further information can be requested from the relevant participating financial institutions. And there are key features of the grant component, and for the rest of the presentation and key features, I'd like to hand over to Naz Hanım, who will make this part. Thank you very much, Caner Bey. Now, I'd like to provide information about the grant component, which is the second component of the project. These are the key features of our grant component. So in this grant component, beneficiary companies will receive sub-grants on condition that they are going to create formal employment and jobs for Turkish citizens and refugees. And firms will be asked to submit an employment plan to recruit new employees together with a viable business plan for the employment of 18 months. And these employment records submitted by the firms will be cross-checked with the official Social Security Institution reports periodically in order to validate conditionality compliance, as mentioned by Özlem Hanım. There will be no restrictions on sectoral basis except the exclusion list of the World Bank and TKYB, and firms will be able to access to either loan or sub-grants under the project. The participation of women-inclusive enterprises will be encouraged. And under this project, under the scope of this project, estimated number of sub-grant beneficiary firms is 770, of which 255 is expected to be women-inclusive firms. Estimated number of formal jobs created by sub-grant beneficiary firms is 9,000, of which 2,700 is expected to be women employment. And TKYB will provide capacity building activities for the sub-grant beneficiaries under the technical and institutional support components of the project. So, in line with the objectives and priorities of this project, we published a call for proposal for the grant program. And in this program, for the benefit of Turkish citizens and refugees, the overall objective of the program is to enhance the conditions of the formal job creation by firms operating in growing economic sectors with high employment potential located in selected 24 provinces with high incidence of Syrians under temporary protection for the benefit of Turkish citizens and refugees. Beneficiary firms will receive the grant conditional on formal employment creation. And there are two priorities of this program. The first priority is to create and increase formal employment for refugees and Turkish citizens. And the second priority is to create and increase formal employment for women. This KAIST project, Formal Employment Creation Project, and the grant program of this project will be implemented in 24 provinces you see on the screen. And the budget of this KAIST grant program is 17 million euros. Depending on the size and scale of the enterprises, 14 million euros will be provided to small enterprises, 22.4 million euros will be provided to medium enterprises, and 33.6 million euros will be provided to large enterprises. And the grant amount requested will range from 15,000 to 45,000 euros for small enterprises, and from 25,000 to 125,000 euros for medium enterprises, and from 40,000 to 300,000 euros for large enterprises. Under the grant program, our support contribution is from 50% to 70% of the total eligible cost of the sub-project. Here in this table, you can see the expected funding sources for a small-scale firm by minimum and maximum support amounts. So the maximum support amount is 70%. So the sub-grant amount and co-financing and total sub-project breakdown are shown here in this chart. So we have another rule in the lower section of this table. So human resources cost will have two different situations depending on whether it is 70% or maximum 90% of the total eligible cost. So, as mentioned before, you can download our presentation from our website, and for the medium-sized and large-scale companies, you can look into the sample expected funding sources in great details later. Now, I'd like to talk about the eligibility criteria in three headings. The first one is eligibility of the applicant, and the second one is eligibility of sub-projects, and the third one is eligibility of costs. So, who can apply? Applicant companies must be a legal person, which means joint stock, limited liability, collective, ordinary, limited partnership, and limited partnership companies can apply to the grant program. And they can be a small firm, medium firm, or large firm. It depends on the number. The scale of these companies is determined according to the number of employees. If you have below 50 employees, it is a small firm, and if you have between 50 to 249 employees, it is a medium firm. If you have equal to or more than 250 employees, your company is categorized as large firm. And it must be fully privately owned enterprise. Publicly owned businesses are not eligible for the grant program. Cooperatives and non-profit organizations are not eligible for this call on this program either. And they must be officially registered in Turkey and have facilities and operate the sub-project activity in one of the selected project provinces. And they must have been established at least 2 years prior to the date of call for proposals notice. They should not have no previous non-paid and overdue liabilities, overdue social charges and tax payment without exceeding the legal limits of prevailing legislation or defaulted loans. They must be directly responsible for the preparation and management of the sub-projects and not act as an intermediary. They must not receive or must not have received a loan within the scope of the loan component of the formal employment creation project. As we mentioned before, there isn't any sectoral restriction or any categorical restriction to the eligible firms. And also the sub-projects must be implemented in compliance with the environmental and social commitment plans of the project and environmental and social standards of the World Bank, and they should not be excluded according to the World Bank safeguards regulations and the exclusion list of TKYB and the World Bank. And you can find the exclusion list on this project website, a link you see on the screen. Duration of the sub-projects must be between 18 to 21 months, and it is expected to create and maintain formal employment for 18 months. As regards applicants that have a legal entity, each applicant firm as a legal entity can submit only one sub-project proposal, and these sub-projects must be implemented in the selected project provinces. As regards the sub-component, only eligible costs can be covered, and the categories of eligible and ineligible costs should be visited in our guideline. As regards the most important points, all costs should be incurred by the beneficiary within the scope of the sub-project budget that is approved by the TKYB, and the expenses before and after the sub-project approval shall not be considered as eligible costs, and the sub-project budget will be prepared in euro currency. Human resources. Under human resources budget heading, only the cost of the newly hired employees within the scope of the sub-project can be considered as eligible cost. The human resources costs of existing registered employees cannot be covered in the sub-project budget. Overall, human resources cost refers to employers' cost. The human resources budget heading can consist of minimum 70% and maximum 90% of total eligible costs of the sub-project budget. So, with the CAST project, we aim at creating a balanced formal job creation between Turkish citizens and refugees. If you pay attention to this point while you're preparing your project, you will score high. Another eligible direct costs is the working capital costs, including raw materials, ancillary materials, components, sub-assemblies, and etc., production materials, utilities, and maintenance costs. These budget items can be indicated as eligible direct costs. Fixed investment costs are the costs needed for new investments and/or expansion or modernization of existing facilities, and covers multiple sub-project budget items as machinery equipment, vehicle, furniture, computer equipment, installation costs, spare parts, and consumables, and etc., small-scale construction work, and also the software licenses, and also other different investment costs can be or expenditures can be indicated as fixed investment costs and eligible costs. Another category of eligible direct costs is other costs. Expenses related to consultancy, publication, research, audit, evaluation, visibility actions, promotional activities, work permit fees, which is the most important one, and other employment-related legal fees and etc. are incurred during the implementation of the sub-project are indicated under this budget heading. Eligible indirect costs. These indirect costs incurred in carrying out the action may be eligible for flat rate funding, and this is only 3%. These are administrative costs and incidental expenditures. And for the administrative costs, we can find the office supplies, stationery supplies, mailing, postage, telephone, internet, and fax costs, heating, electricity, other forms of energy, water, and office furniture, and other expenditures necessary for the successful completion of the sub-project can be indicated as administrative costs. Incidental expenditures are also limited to a flat rate of 3% of total direct eligible cost of the sub-project, and it is subject to an administrative order and written approval of TKYB. As regards ineligible costs, you can find them in our guideline and also in our presentation in details. Very quickly, I can say that debt service charges, provisions for losses and future liabilities, and costs declared and funded by another EU-funded project, and loans and grants to third parties, taxes including value-added taxes, and purchase and rent and leasing of land and buildings, second-hand machinery, equipment, bank charges, cost of guarantees, similar charges, conversion costs and exchange losses, contributions in kind, any leasing costs, depreciation costs, and costs incurred by those other than the beneficiary firm, and cost of preparatory work and expenditures not related to the project or the expenditures before the start of the project are ineligible costs. This is the website of our project, which is KAIST.org, and it is available in Turkish and in English. www.kais.org is our website, and you can find the details of our project on this website. And also, the application guideline, application form, and business plan can be downloaded in Arabic as well for information purposes. And on our website, from the application tab, you are going to be referred to KAIST online application platform where you can submit your application. And also through the contact form of our website and at kaist@kalkınma.com.tr, you can submit your questions to us. On the screen, you can see the login screen of the application platform. After this presentation, Caner Bey is going to demonstrate a simple application process through all the steps. What is important here is that during your application, you will have to use the one-time code that you will receive to your smartphones, and then you can prepare your application and fill out your application form, save it as a draft, and so when you just click on submit, your application will be saved in our system.
Talking about the application process, there are some application documents, and these include Annex A, application form and business plan, Annex B, sub-grant budget, Annex C, sub-grant employment plan and performance indicators, Annex D, procurement plan, and Annex E, logical framework matrix. So these are the application documents which will be prepared through the KAIST platform. So after this presentation is completed, Caner Bey is going to provide you with an example of how an application should be filled in. Regarding the application process, another important item I would like to mention is the supporting documents. So we are requesting some supporting documents, and of course you can see the details in the application guideline regarding the supporting documents. If any of these are not available or not applicable, please upload another explanatory document during the application while you upload your application. You can see the continuation of the supporting documents, which I underlined in the previous slide. As you can see, some of the supporting documents concern environmental and social preliminary check for eligibility. So if these are not available or not applicable, you have to upload another explanatory document. So how to apply? The subgrant application form and business plan, its annexes, and all supporting documents must only be submitted electronically through KAYİ's subgrant platform. So, all the related information are provided on kayis.org. So, when you click on Başvur, Apply, you can be routed to the KAYİ subgrant platform. And another important thing, if there is any conflict between Turkish and English documents, the English subgrant application guideline and its annexes will be binding, and applications can be submitted in Turkish or in English. Deadline for the submission of applications is 28th of February 2022, 17. So please remember that the system can be overloaded towards the deadline, so it is recommended to upload your application before the last hours. Regarding the application process, questions may be sent by email no later than 20 days before the deadline, which is indicated. And as you can see, and for FAQ and for important announcements concerning the application, you can look at kayis@kalkınma.com.tr. So I would like to provide you some brief information concerning the steps of evaluation under the scope of evaluation and selection of applications. I would like to underline that there will be some steps that will be followed. The first step is going to be administrative and eligibility check. The second step will be technical and financial evaluation. The third step is going to be environmental and social assessment. Step 4 is going to be notification of the contracting authority's decision, and the last will be subgrant contract signing. Regarding, all applications passing administrative and eligibility controls will be assessed in terms of technical and financial evaluation. So there will be certain criteria that will be taken into consideration, as you can see on the screen. Relevance, financial operational capacity, methodology, cost effectiveness, sustainability. So these are going to be the 5 categories for evaluation. This is the subgrant evaluation grid. The total score, as you can see, will, those that will be lower than 65 overall, and those that will be less than 20 from the methodology will fail. So I would like to show you the methodology formal employment creation step. And as you can see, the additional refugee employment and additional female employee employment, depending on the percentage and the overall amount, will provide you with extra score. Depending on the size of the company, for each additional employment, there will be different scores that will be attached according to the evaluation process. And finally, I would like to talk about the indicative timetable. So deadline for submission of applications is 28th of February 2022, 17. So if you have any questions, deadline for requesting any clarifications, and you can also provide us your questions until the 24th. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nasanım. Now, Caner Bey, I would like to give you the floor. Caner Bey is going to show us kayis.org, the website, and then he is going to explain us the platform. The floor is yours, Caner Bey. Kayis.org website. Well, this is the homepage that you can see on the screen. And in order to apply to the grant program, you have to look at this homepage of the website. And at this homepage, we can see the extension of the deadline for submission of questions. Until the 24th of February, you can ask us any questions concerning your application, and we will try to do our best in order to provide you with an early reply. But we always, there might be some delays, but we definitely provide answers to your questions. And you can find this presentation in the website. This is the 4th information sharing meeting. There will be 2 more information sharing meetings, and you can find their technical details on the website. We receive a lot of questions, and we have an FAQ. We have an FAQ document that we had published, and this is an important page for the applicants. You can find answers to many of your questions in the FAQ. There are around 40 questions with replies provided in this page of the website. And after today's presentation about the program, you have received some information and you have an overall idea, and you can look at these tabs. You can look at the documents regarding the call for proposals, and also you can click on the call for proposals tab and also look at the application documents. And here you can see the presentation, and you can see the application guideline, which describes the details of the process, and also grant application form, business plan, and also other annexes such as performance indicators and procurement plan. You can find all these documents available here. Regarding the announcements part, you can see that announcements made by the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey are made available on this site, on this page of the website. There is Apply tab, and you are referred to the grant platform when you click on Apply tab. So let's look at it, and we will show you a case. When you click on this, you will be routed to this screen and a new application. When you want to fill in a new application, you have to fill in the tax ID number of the company, the name of the applicant company, and then we say continue application, and then the related page opens up. So this will be the first page, general information about the company. So as the name suggests, we are asking for basic information concerning the company. Name of the company will appear automatically, and then the amount of subgrant requested. So this is also automatically taken from the amounts you have provided in the previous pages. And also, if there is an abbreviation of the company name, then the type of the company, and this is a drop-down menu which you have to select from, tax ID number, and the tax office that you're registered to. And also, this is the date of registration at the Trade Registry Gazette, and the province that the company is registered at. So there is a drop-down menu which makes you see the 24 provinces. You will have to select one. Type of the company depending on its size, small scale, medium scale, and large scale, as you can see. And you can see, I'm just typing in these numbers just to show you an example case. So number of employees you had for the last 3 years, end of year 2019, end of year 2020, and 2021, the current month, the current number of employees for 2021. So as we continue, every business owner already knows the sector, and this is the NACE coding according to which you have to select the area of activity. Let's say this is a company that has manufacturing activities, and I choose under manufacturing, furniture manufacturing and kitchen furniture manufacturing. This is what I do. I save it and continue, save and continue, and you can see the summary financial details of the company that we request from the applicants, depending, I mean, these are belonging to the last 3 years. The net sales income, the net income, I mean, we refer to the net profit. And as you can see in the last part, the total assets, the equity, and also debt for 2019, 2020, for the end of the year, and for 2021 for the interim period. These are the details that we are asking. So save and continue. The partnership structure of the company has to be entered here in detail. So legal entity, natural person, or maybe it is an IPO. So if there is a partner with higher shares than 5%, you have to enter other, and then you have to enter a share that is less than 5% if it is a natural person. Let's say it is, the share is 10, and if it's a natural person, the ID number, name, surname, gender, nationality, and then the residence address. If it's a legal entity, tax ID, and also the title, the name of the company, which is a legal entity. Save and continue. Here you can see the communication details of the applicant, telephone number, address, email address, and also the website of the company, and also the contact person of the company and other details of the contact person, position in the company of the contact person. This is the name of the sub-project, which is included under the basic details of the sub-project. Every applicant is requested to provide a name to the sub-project and the location of implementation of this related sub-project. The company may have headquarters in Istanbul, but maybe the employment activity is going to take place in Gaziantep. So the implementation location has to be entered. If it's Gaziantep, Gaziantep. Duration of the sub-project, it is supposed to be between 18 to 21 months, and the maximum duration is 21, minimum duration is 18 months for the employment. So you can choose from the drop-down menu, 18 until 21. So what are the objectives? What are the targets you have set? What are the objectives of the sub-project? You have to summarize those objectives. The general, the overall, and also specific objectives should be summarized here with respect to the sub-project. And what are the target groups in this sub-project? So what we refer to is, who are they going to be? Who will be directly and positively impacted from your sub-project? Who are those people? So the final beneficiaries would require a macro perspective. So social or sectorial impact, who are going to finally benefit from this project? So this requires a macro perspective while you're writing the final beneficiary and the expected results of the sub-project. So you can just type in the expected results. This is what is requested from you to fill in the information. So the scope might be investment, or it might be strengthening the capacity that you have available, or it can be diversification of the product and services, or it might be adaptation to crisis such as the pandemic, or you might be another scope which you have to specify as other. And finally, what are the main activities of the project? So in summary, activity by activity and the explanation are required to be filled in here. So description of the company. These require information which are quite critical to us, because this is the part where you will be typing in information related to your company, because this will help us to understand you better. Therefore, please do not limit yourself while you describe your company. Please write as long as you can, in as much detail as you can. History of the company, the experience you've been through, what has changed. You can talk about the history of the company here in this table. And then what are the services provided? What is the current infrastructure and background, and the number of employees depending on the category of employment, full-time and part-time, project management, accountants, and also equipment and office information. Please be generous. Do not limit yourself while describing your company. Well, in the platform, it looks as if it is limited. However, you can go down as much as you can. There is no limitation to the number of characters that you would type into these frames. So if you have an organizational chart already available, you can add it here, but this is not compulsory. You can just leave it empty, or you can upload the organizational chart that you already have available. Some additional resources, other information related to your company, other details you would like to fill in related to your company are required here. The last part contains description of your products and or services and market analysis. What we expect from you is the sector that you are active in. I mean, in the regional, in national, in international arena, what is your place? What are the challenges? What are the difficulties? Who are your competitors? What is your competitive advantage? What kind of a pricing strategy do you pursue? What are the barriers that you are trying to overcome, and how to overcome those barriers in the sector? So the answers to these questions here are expected to be typed in to this frame, and this is going to be the last part. I say save and continue. When I save and continue, I can see the objectives of the sub-project. So this grant program and the sub-project are supposed to have some objectives. So there are already laid down objectives, but we are asking about your sub-project's objectives, overall and specific objectives. Well, of course, the overall objective of this grant program is to create formal employment for refugees and also for host community members, for Turkish nationals. So you have to take this into consideration, and you have to set your overall and specific objectives in line with this overall objective of the grant program. So when you're awarded with the support, what kind of an additional value you are going to create? This is the type of information we are asking you to fill in here. So the rationale, the justification for the employment. This is about relevance and justifications. Your project will be described about how relevant it is to the overall objective. So as I previously underlined, it is formal employment creation and also improvement of the working conditions both for refugees and Turkish nationals. And how relevant is your project has to be described here. So the list of the target groups, and you can see the target regions and also the needs and limitations to be identified within the target group. You apply to this program because there were certainly some challenges and there were some limitations that you were aware of. So you have to describe them here in order to fill in the required information. And regarding the selection of target group and the activities, we are asking for the reasons why, how and why you selected this target group, and taking into consideration the requested budget items, why you selected these activities. So we are asking for justifications. So this is the market position strategy and also relevance with the program objectives and priorities. You can see a set of questions here, and we are expecting the answers to these questions. And please write as much detail in as many details as you can, and please describe the relevance. What are the requirements that you are aiming to meet, and the relevance of your sub-project with the overall program? Please describe in as many details as you can. Of course, every sub-project will have an environmental and social aspect. And what are the environmental and social requirements that you will be meeting with your sub-project? And are there any additional requirements to be met as required by the legislation? And sometimes we we received some questions from the potential applicants. They asked, they don't have an environmental impact assessment report. Do they have to take an environmental impact assessment report? Is it required or not? So if you're exempt or not, or if you're an environmental friendly company, if you can provide us some documents related to those or some certificates related to those, please take those into consideration and please indicate all those documents and certificates as relevant here in this frame. And you can also talk about the relevant legal aspects for the completion of the sub-project. Maybe there are some authorizations and some licenses which are required to be granted. And if so, please indicate them here. Action plan. So this is very important for every applicant throughout the sub-project duration. What are the actions you are going to implement? What are the activities that you're going to implement? So that is required to be filled in as many details as you can. Of course, these should be in line with the budget that you are setting. So detailed action plan should be described in maximum 500 words, and every sub-activity is requested to be described. So for instance, you are making a commitment concerning employment regarding human resources. Of course, you will be required to make some preparatory work. For instance, you can apply for a work permit. So that is the preparatory work concerning employment. And you will need to sign some contracts with those people by describing the activity, contract stage, and also categorization according to nationality, employment process, or maybe you will have to procure some machinery. So all machines in detail, one by one, has to be described. And by clicking on this, for instance, I type in on the human resources main category, I type in the details and description of the activity will be typed in here, and you will be selecting here when I say save, I will see the third main title. So if you want to type in a subcategory, when you click on the plus here, you will have the subcategory under the main categories, under the main titles here. So here, of course, what we would like to underline as an important note that this sub-grant program will be providing a balanced support to the beneficiaries with respect to registered employment, formal employment creation. That would be 50%. And we would also like to underline that the employment has to have a duration of minimum 18 months. Minimum 18 months, and that is supposed to be maintained. For instance, you are planning to employ someone at month 3 after signing of the contract, and you have to click for 18 months. If you're going to procure machinery and equipment at month 2 after the signing of the contract, you're going to buy that machinery, you have to just tick the months accordingly. When you save and continue, you will see the methodology section. During the implementation of the project, what are going to be your implementation methodologies? For instance, the instruments to be rented, and what is the logic? Why do you pursue such a methodology? You are supposed to describe them in detail. Financial, technical monitoring and reporting. How will you monitor the project? Who is going to be in charge? Internal control and external evaluation processes need to be described. And finally, what is this proposed team for the implementation of this sub-project? We are expecting some key personnel to be nominated, and CVs should be in EU format, and supportive documents, which are the CVs of these key personnel, should be uploaded to the platform. So you can use this plus in order to upload the CVs of related persons, name, surname, area of expertise, gender, and position in the company, and how long has this person been working at this company should be filled in according to the relevant details. Employment plan and performance indicators are described here. So here you can see for both existing and committed planned additional employed personnel under the scope of the project should be described in terms of gender, status of employment, and also status with respect to their nationality. For instance, male, Turk, and two. There are two current workers in the company who are male and Turkish, and then there will be 4 additional female Turkish employees, and they will be working as technical staff. So I want to add some staff here. I want to add some employees. So first you can enter the already employed personnel and who are already working. Let's say at the moment there are 10 people working for your company. So you type in 10 and under SUTP, I assume there will be 5 female employees. And when you type in the details, the number of existing employees and the planned number of employees added up to the total will appear automatically. When you save and continue, you will see project implementation and management capacity, which will be the next page that you will see. If in the past you have had some similar project experience, then you are required to write those projects, how much support you have received in terms of euros and who supported the project, what was the amount of contribution, when did it start, when did it finish. We are asking you to fill in, type in those pieces of information. If you don't have any such previous project experience, then leave it empty and continue. So, expected impact on target group. So the program has some target groups, and of course, at the short, medium, and long term, there are some impacts that will be created, and we are asking you to describe those impacts that will be on the target group, describing the situation, the employment status of the refugees and female. So regarding female refugee employment, what are the targets? What are the expected impacts on the target group can be described here. And of course, the technical and management capacity of the target groups, the multiplier effect that is supposed to be created by this project. Will the employment be sustainable in the long run? What will be the impact on other areas? What is the impact in medium and in short and long term? What is financial sustainability? And of course, what is environmental sustainability, social sustainability? This is going to be funded by the European Union. So visibility, what are going to be the visibility activities that you're going to implement? So you're requested to type in these information in detail. So the sub-project budget is going to be the next one. So this table is something that you're familiar with because we have already shown that during the presentation. So while applying for the project, please take this template into consideration. So for an example company, I just typed in an example budget with the sub-items. Well, of course, every company will have some human resources expenses, will have a budget and the working capital and also raw materials, auxiliary materials, energy bills, and also fixed investment, and also small scale repair and auxiliary services, machinery, equipment, and material expenditures, and also other investment costs, other costs and services, audit, translation, visibility, work permit, and other legal costs. These are all eligible. And I just would like to show you the human resources expenses. So in this table under every main category, you are requested, for instance, this is human resources expenditure, who you would like to employ, not on lump sum basis, one by one, for every employee with the qualifications, we are requesting you to type in the details. For instance, you are going to hire an administrative personnel, and this person is going to be a Turkish national. And of course, there will be some costs that are on monthly basis. So the unit will be month, and of course, it will be minimum 18 months of duration. So amount will be 18 because that is the required minimum duration. And monthly unit cost, for instance, will be 400 euros per month, and the total will be automatically calculated. So the justification for the cost will be entered in here. So based on the related month, the total expenditure for this employee will be written in here. But you can see there are some examples for one Turkish national. So 450 euros in average, 18 months, and 18 multiplied by 450, 8,100. So that is going to be the total cost for administrative employee. Of course, on the basis of companies, the unit costs may change, and that may change depending on the date of application. So while calculating this cost, please take into consideration the Central Bank of Turkey's currency exchange rate for euros. But what matters is, of course, not cumulative, but for every employee, we are requiring you to type in the values on the basis of month, on the basis of unit, on the basis of total cost. And by typing in the justifications, we are requesting you to fill in these data.
There may be also working capital cost, for example, assuming that a company is going to buy a raw material. There may be a plastic cost as well based on kg or unit. Let's say assume that they just buy 100 kg and unit cost is 50 euros. So in total, the total cost will be 5,000 euros on this assumption. But as I said before, you may have energy expenses, machinery, equipment, and software expenses and costs. So it depends on each company. So you should create your budget and budget items depending on your company's expenses. Here, so how much grant you request from us? You can only indicate percentage here, as you know. In formal employment creation projects, grant support amounts ranges from 50% to 70%. For that reason, the companies are expected to provide co-financing around 50 to 30%. It may be 60% or 70% of your request. And when you click on calculate button, your total budget will be 25,000 euros in this example, of course, and you're expected to provide 30% of co-financing, accounting for 10,000 euros, and total project budget will be 35,000 euros, and the grant amount that you may request is 25,000, of course, on this specific sample project. There is also financial plan. You're expected to draft this financial plan based on the sample document here. You will see an Excel sheet. On that Excel sheet, you will be expected to fill out the financial information in that Excel sheet and upload it into this system. As we move on, and this part is going to be the most challenging part in terms of operation because there are supporting documents. Those that are marked with red stars are the mandatory ones that you need to upload your documents, and the ones that are not marked with a star, for example, capacity report to be received from TKYB. It is not compulsory for every company, because if you're not a manufacturing company, you cannot get any capacity report. but everyone is expected to provide the commercial gazette registry. And also from PDF format, you can select a file here, or you can drag and drop the relevant PDF file and upload it here. And one of the important features of this platform is that at the application phase, without completing one section, you cannot proceed to the or move to the next section. Until the last step, you are recommended to read the list of supporting documents and prepare them in advance, because you cannot come back to this section when you pass it. For that reason, if you just complete the compulsory documents, you can go down and see the other sections. As I already filled out this part, I'm not going to upload or select any files at this point. And I will move to the next stage. Of course, we are expecting you to provide a purchasing plan. And for example, you see plastic and software here, because it is automatically driven to here based on the sub-budget items. Apart from HR, machinery, equipment, raw material that you are planning to purchase will be automatically filled in here. And when you click here, for example, this is description, purchasing one. The relevant budget item is, I just plan to buy plastic and software under this budget. These two ones are demonstrated as a drop-down menu. And then category of purchasing, as these are goods, you should select goods. And if it was about construction, you would have to choose construction works or other things, the relevant things. And the purchasing method, in line with the World Bank rules, construction, for construction it is WGO, and for consultancy services the code is CS, and you are expected to write them manually. As this is a goods purchasing, you have to indicate GO, for example, and the estimated budget. You will have to again indicate the budget here as you used in the budget section. So when are you planning the purchase of this goods? You have to select it from the calendar. Let's say it's 300, and the date that you're planning to purchase is any date. I just set any date, and you will save and move on to the next one. This is the last part. This is the work plan or business plan and a logical framework, and there is a sample document. This is a draft logical framework, and companies have to fill out this document and upload it to the system in PDF format as the last document. After this document is filled out and completed on the basis of each company, you can save it as a draft, and if you wish, you can go back to the previous pages and check. And then after checking the previous pages, you can move on. And if there isn't any missing part, you have to complete your application and log out. And this is also going to pop up in the screen as a warning. After your completed applications, you cannot modify your application. If there is any mistake in the application, for the cancellation of that application, at kalkınma.com.tr or through the kayist.org, you should send an official letter to us. After that is approved, your application will be deleted, and you will have to prepare your application right from the start. So if you are sure that you are not going to make any modification on your application, you will click on yes, and then your application will have been completed. Apart from this, there isn't much I can tell you about this platform. I wish you ease in your work in this process, and if you have questions about this platform, you can always send emails to us. Thank you very much, Caner Bey. There are, we can say a few points about this platform. You can get your information about the application in PDF format, and it will be ready in the following 2 or 3 days. So your application information can be saved in PDF format. But for now, after your application is completed, you can only see your information by logging in. We can proceed with the questions, Özlem Hanım. How should we proceed? Because there are some questions we received. Yeah, we can directly answer their questions, and then we can proceed with the frequently asked questions if there need maybe. The first question, can home office-based companies participate in the grant program? Naz, can you please answer this question? Let's start with you. Can home office companies join the grant program? Yes, sure, Özlem Hanım. Of course, depending on the course of the pandemic, companies may have to introduce such practices. What is important to us is throughout the implementation period of the project, in monitoring visits, these newly employed persons' working conditions will also be assessed and considered. And in the implementation period, they will have to participate in various trainings. So if you can ensure these conditions, because of the pandemic, if such a situation will be the situation, I think there will not be any limitation or restriction. Caner provided the details of this, and this is also indicated in the presentation. If the headquarter of the companies in Istanbul, 2 factories are in Şanlıurfa, and the total, according to what we are going to calculate the total number of employees? There are 3 factors. Are we going to take the sum of all 3 company employees into consideration for the calculation of the total number of employees? Ayşegül Hanım? As a legal entity, you are going to apply. So the total number of employees of that company is going to be taken as a basis.
Ufak kesinti için özür diliyoruz.
We are very sorry for this interruption or disconnection. One of the questions is, the company headquarters is in Istanbul, 2 factories are in Şanlıurfa. Are we going to calculate the total number of employees based on the total number of employees in 3 factories, or are we going to take into consideration number of the employees at the HQ? Ayşegül Hanım? Of course, the applicant has a legal entity, so we are going to take into consideration the total number of employees across all factories. But in sub-project proposal, for example, in Istanbul, in Şanlıurfa, these are the project provinces, as these provinces are in selected provinces. But whenever they are going to create employment, they have to indicate it. As we talk about the number of employees, if a company doesn't have any registered employee, can they apply for a grant? Can they benefit from can they be beneficiary from grants? With 0 employee, you cannot. Sorry, unfortunately. We are establishing an event enterprise. Can we also benefit from the grant program, grant support? No. With 0 employee, unfortunately, you cannot. But you have to be operating at least for 2 years, and if you are making a new investment, establishing a new business, then if you're planning to create new employment there, under that enterprise, then you can benefit from the grants. In determining the scale of the enterprise, the number of the employees is important. There's also a question about that. How are we going to adjust the changing number of employees? How are we going to determine the scale of the company? He gave an extreme example. Let's say we start with 10 employees, and in 1 year, if we exceed 250 employees, what is the scale of that enterprise? I will continue with the number of employees based on scale of the enterprises. At the application phase, the number of employees then, formal registered number of employees will determine the scale, but the later increases will not be taken into consideration. By changing the scale, your group, your category, and the amount of grant that you can benefit will not change. So the scale at the time of application will be taken into consideration. Another relevant question, let's say that's a part-time for 20 hours a week, we are employing an employee. Can that be considered as employment? Unfortunately, part-time work basis is not considered as employment in this grant program. Regarding Apex lending, there is a question. It's not about loan grants components. From the relevant PFIs, we wanted to request information about Apex lending, but they told us that they are not aware of this either. I think branch offices, branches of the participating financial institutions have a problem in information flow, but we should also indicate that we should also suggest that this Apex lending under the scope of this project is not going to be considered as a loan with incentive, with interest rates. It's not a specific and special loan. The leasing companies will provide some advantages for maturity. For that reason, you should not consider this as a public lending or a lending from cost gap. Janesh, you mentioned about this, but it's important to repeat it. While logging into the system, should the telephone number we will indicate belong to an employee in the company? If that telephone number changes in this process, can we also change it in the system? As a matter of fact, we are not checking if that telephone number belongs to an official of that company. A consultant or someone external to the company may also indicate that number. What is important is that the same number should be used for the same application. So with another phone number, you cannot proceed with your application process. This was the first thing. And the second one, if the number changes, so you cannot visualize and display the same application, then you will have to submit a new application. So, but if you're going to apply for the same company, or you cannot proceed with the same company with different number, maybe you can send an official letter to the bank in order to cancel that application. You can submit the same application with another number. But if the application is completed but the number changes, I think no major problem will occur in line with the content of the application. There is another question. It may be related to application. Should the contact person be an employee of that company? I think should the contact person be the applicant himself or herself, or should that contact person be the person that you will contact? Maybe you can comment on this. The contact person, what we want here is the authorized person of the company should start and end this process from the start to the end of this process. We should not be in contact with different persons. Just one person should be the contact person with the telephone number and email address for it to be consistent from the start to the end. One of the frequently asked questions is that on the document requested, who should sign, who should stamp? For example, tax statement, should it be signed and stamped? Should the authorized person of the company sign and stamp it, or the tax office? There was a similar question. Whose stamp should be used? Where are we going to get that stamp? Is it going to be signed, or do you refer to someone else? And which of the documents should be signed wet to be delivered and submitted to your bank? These are the questions. Maybe it will be better to answer these questions. We can say that while receiving these applications, we are not getting the wet signed or original copies of these documents. We're going to scan them and share them with us. It is very difficult to say something general. Every document has different properties, because from the e-government system you can get a barcoded document, and the companies will submit letter of commitment or environmental social commitments and other commitments as well. Of course, you will print them out, sign them, and stamp them with the signatures of the authorized persons of the company, stamp of your company, and then upload them into the system. For the stamp, depending on the document issued, it may vary, because some of the documents are asked to be provided in original forms with SWAT signature and stamp. Is e-signature enough, or do you want to see the notary certified ones? E-signature is enough, but not every company has that. It is very difficult to say something general. Depending on the documents, nature of the documents may vary. This is a very frequently asked question. Another question is about a EIA report. So if the company does not have any activity that requires an environmental impact assessment report, what are we going to do in the supporting documents? how are we going to justify that that report is not required for our activity? In the CHOP project, sub-project, the EIA report is not required, but it is supposed to be uploaded to the system. What are we going to do? Do we need such a EIA report for the personally owned companies, or what are we going to include in the project document or folder? Is there any template for that? EIA report, if the environmental impact assessment, if your company is subject to the relevant regulation and legislation, and if you need to get that document, maybe environmental impact assessment, or that assessment is not needed, or it is out of the scope of that assessment, depending on your status, you are expected to upload the relevant documents accordingly. If you're not covered by the scope of this environmental impact assessment, you will have the license to operate, or environmental permit documents or certificate, depending on your activity. The unit is upload those documents. You need to upload something in the EIA part, so you need to upload a document showing that your EIA report is not required for your activity. On this platform, we have the environmental social management part, so we can also indicate this issue in there. One of the questions is, one of the sub-project codes of this steel processing company, one of the sub-NACE codes, sub-activity service, is in the excluded NACE code. But despite that, as this activity is a sub-activity, can we yet apply? But we don't have any problem in our main activity, but the sub-activity is excluded or prohibited. Can we apply? Of course, the activity of the company is important, but on the basis of company, we need to investigate it. We need to see what that sub-activity is. Of course, we prefer both are suitable. We need to make sure that both of those activities are suitable. That NACE code of the project that you will propose should never be in that prohibited list, prohibited activities list. One of the frequently asked questions is, are we going to employ, by just employing only Turkish citizens, can we apply? Can we proceed? Caner Bey, you can answer this question. Of course, the companies, while submitting their project proposals, are set free. You can make their own considerations and meet their needs through their project proposals based on their companies. And one of the main expectations and objectives of this project is that this formal employment should be created in a balanced manner between Turkish citizens and refugees. We have an evaluation grid in our application guideline. And if you look at those criteria of the evaluation grid, employment, if you commit to employ women and refugees, you will get higher scores. For that reason, for evaluation, this should be taken into consideration by the companies as we desire it to. So is there any minimum ratio between the number of Turkish citizens and Syrians to be employed? We don't have any minimum or maximum rate at TKYB. It is all up to the company's initiative. And of course, for the small-scale companies, if you're committing to employ more than four, you can get full score in the evaluation grade. And for the medium and large-scale enterprises, this number changes. For that reason, the applicants should check the application guideline and the evaluation grade therein for further information. So what do you mean by C-level managers or executives? Could you please elaborate on that? C-level, C-suite manager. And could you also talk about the logical framework? What should they indicate in the content of that logical framework? Yes, of course, Özlem Hanım. C-suite managers mean the medium-level managers. For further information, you can visit our application guideline. As regards to logical framework matrix, in such grant programs, nearly in all of them, this is required as an approach. This shows the basis of your project and which activities are based on what assumptions, which assumptions. This is a kind of systematic ranking of all these activities. And also, applicants of grant program, depending on their projects, need to fill out that logical framework matrix and upload it on the platform. In the application form, there are 2 points requiring clarification. The first one is net income. What is net income? Does net income equal to net sales deducted from the commercial goods, or do you mean something else? Caner Bey, maybe you can answer this question. I can put it this way. In our income statement, based on balance sheet, they are indicated as net sales. What do we mean by that? Net income is net sales. Returns and discounts are deducted from the net sales. And also, I think period net profit was defined. The period net profit can be taken as the basis according to balance sheet basis. It is the last part of the income statement. And in the application form, there is one part. According to the employment category, full-time, part-time employees, number of part-time and full-time employees is requested. So in this part, are we going to indicate this information for the newly employed ones, or are we going to give the information about all available employees? According to the employment category, you are requesting us to provide a number of employees such as project managers, accountants, working on full-time and part-time basis in the application form. Are we going to show this for all employees or for newly employed ones? No, the existing employees. So we want to see the employment capacity, existing employment capacity. For the additional employment, part-time is not a matter to be taken as the basis. They have to employ them full-time. Companies, we want to see the human resources such as consultancy and other things that a company can reach. And there are some questions that they could not find the presentation. So you can find our presentation under the call for proposal tab. You can find this presentation in that tab of call for proposals. You can also find a video recording of the previous meetings under how to apply. Is it going to be a problem if I'm self-employed and apply for this grant program? And another question, the self-employed companies having a tax ID of 10 digits, can they form an ordinary limited partnership and apply? The unlimited companies are out of scope. For that reason, those companies can change their classification if it is in line with the establishment criteria, if your company has been established 2 years before. In line with these conditions, the commercial trade registry gazette is requested, especially in ordinary limited partnerships. This is not in the scope. So publicly owned businesses, cooperatives, and non-profit organizations and unlimited companies are out of scope.
Büyük dosyaları maille göndersin.
They're asking whether they can send an email for those files that are very big in size. Well, the whole application is required to be sent via the platform, and other means, other ways, email, post, cargo, courier, those applications will not be admitted if sent through other means. So you can upload your files to the related section, and in the supporting documents, there is an area in which you can upload your supporting documents. Please follow the platform to upload your documents. So while entering the data, is it going to be according to UFRS, KGK, or VUK? according to the tax procedure code. Yes, according to the tax procedure code, and also statement of corporate tax, whatever the procedure that you have to comply with. So that is going to be taken into consideration. So they ask for a mathematical detail. Well, I mean, we also show through the budget samples. Let's say the person asking the question says that, let's say we have 100 Turkish liras, and for employment, we will need 90 Turkish liras, like 70% of grant and 70 Turkish liras of grant and 30 liras of funding by the company, like co-financing. So 70 will be from the grant and 30 from the company's budget. So the question is, for employment, the budget is required between 70 and 90 Turkish liras. Is it correct, or 70% and up to 90% of 70 liras? Can you clarify and elaborate further? So, okay, it is not 90% of 70, so it is 70 to 90% of total project budget going to human resources. So, I mean, the amount you can request as a grant varies between 50 to 70%. You have to do your calculations accordingly. This is an employment program, therefore predominantly investment items should focus on employment, and there is a smaller percentage in other items, but the employment. Once the project is written and submitted, is it possible to make a revision, or is it possible to provide explanations? So you're talking about a later stage. You wrote the project and you submitted that for the approval. The approval process is ongoing, and is it possible to provide a revision? So I think you refer to a revision in the budget. I mean, it is not clarified because this is a very generic question. Well, once the evaluation process is over, and if the applicant is awarded with the grant, before the contracting, a budget revision can take place if there is a request by the independent auditor, if a correction is requested, and after that correction, the contract will be signed. I can also make some additional remarks. If after completion of the application, you're asking for a revision, as underlined by Caner Bey, as we saw in the example, when you say complete the application, once you say finish application, your project proposal is submitted. And I mean, every company with a legal entity can make one application, and that one application is submitted once you say finish. And in order not to have this problem, please save it as draft and make revisions, introduce changes whenever necessary, and finalize it, and then submit it to the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey. Correct. Yes. So another question is the following. When in the link, in order to question the company with KIK prohibition, when we hit the button, it says the company could not be found. But when we get a screenshot, there is an empty document without any information concerning the company. Can I get some detailed information? Well, there is an empty document and they can't see the name of the company. So that is the problem in the question. So they're asking, the company representative is asking what they can do. I think there is a technical problem there, because usually there is this message of not found and they upload that document. So at kais@kalkınma.gov.tr, if you can type in this question to kalkınma@kais.gov.tr, we will reply to that. If you can't find any record, and you can upload the no record found page. Regarding Apex loans, so SMEs Apex application, is it going to be through project application or during the direct contracted leasing companies, through the direct contracted leasing companies? So we as a bank, I mean, they cannot make a direct application to us. Those contracted leasing companies will do their own rating, and the transactions will be fulfilled by those companies. In the evaluation grid, 3.4 could not be understood. It says that the company says we have 3 employees and we are going to hire 2 new people. So from through point 4, what is the score and what is the objective criteria according to which you make the calculation? 3.4, when you say 3.4, I mean, I have to check it. Of course, you can refer to that and maybe we can reply to that later. So I can mention it using this opportunity because that is a question that is frequently asked in the other instances as well. What we say is that for small scale enterprises, 6.25 for each employment until 4 people. So if it's a small scale enterprise, adding 4 new employment, there will be 25 full points. If adds 2, it will be 12.5. So 6.25 multiplied by 2, 6.25 multiplied by 3. If more than 4, there will be full score. So that is going to be 25, which is the maximum you can receive. So similarly, for medium scale, 16 until 16, for every employment, 1.5625 will be the unit that you will be calculating. 3 new employment or 5 new employments. So 5 multiplied by 1.5625, and if 16 and more than 16, it will be full score. So the same logic of calculation for all different categories. Caner Bey, is it possible to share your application guideline through email? So I think they have found that quite useful. So yes, reply to that question. Can you share it via email? No, we are only providing replies to questions via email, but at KAIST.org, you can find replies to the questions. You can find in the FAQ, you can find replies to your questions. And in the video that we have recorded, you can find answers to your questions. And there are further questions by the applicants. And whenever there are questions, we try to do our best to reply to them as quickly as possible. Application form, I mean, is just a sequence of the steps that is shown in the application guidelines. So if you use the application form, you will see very clearly those areas that you have to type in using the platform. Yes, of course. Is there any difference between SUTP and ESSN? Yes, there is a lot of difference. Maybe Naz, you can provide an answer to this question. ESSN is the abbreviation of ESSN in English. In Turkish, it's SUY, Emergency Social Safety Network. SUTP is Syrians under temporary protection. In Turkish, it is GKSS. So just to further elaborate, I would like to underline that one of the project objectives and one of the objectives of the grant program is to cover refugees and Syrians under temporary protection so that they can be supported to exit from ESSN and they can have formal jobs and formal employment. Okay, thank you very much. So is it eligible if we receive services from the SSK? For instance, the receipt of the donation that we receive. So in our application guidelines, we have list of eligible and ineligible costs, both direct and indirect costs. So please check the application guideline and check those which are not listed as eligible. A donation received that you receive from an SSI would not be eligible, I assume. Probably it will not be eligible. Donation, I mean, what kind of donation? When you receive donation, why is it a cost? If you receive services from an NGO, the invoice you receive from the NGO, it's not donation, but they are not talking about an NGO from an NGO. It can be considered as an income. If you are buying services, then of course the expenditure item, the invoice you issue can be considered. So service you receive from the NGOs. So you receive services and you make a donation, or you receive donation. It's kind of confusing in your question. They are also asking, so once our project is approved, we are going to employ people. So, I mean, personal information such as ID information, ID number are not available. How can we find that out right now? We are not asking for it. We are not expecting you to enter those details such as the potential employee's identity number. So we are requesting you to type in the number and also talk about the need and category like engineer, technical staff,
Kişilerin belirlenmesi gerekmiyor
or
ve
support personnel. So you don't need to specify those people with their ID number. That is not our expectation. That is not our request. There's another frequently asked question, which I would like to ask using this opportunity, how to find them, especially how to find the refugees to employ. So regarding that question, I can say that there are 24 provinces, and among 15 of the 24, TRC's community centers are available, so you can apply to TRC's community centers. There are İşkur offices in every province, and you can also receive support from İşkur offices, and also you can find the job seekers using the İşkur offices. Thus, there's one question. Under the scope of another project previously, we received some support, some contribution. Is it an advantage or a disadvantage? So there was a project that you implemented in the past. So in terms of your application via TKYB, KAYIS, it can be considered as an advantage. They received some support under the scope of another project. So probably they received a similar grant. So in terms of project management capacity and evaluation thereof, from that lens, in terms of the independent auditors, this is going to be an asset, an advantage. But if you have an ongoing project that is funded under the scope of another program, the same costs cannot be funded under KAYIS. So that is going to be a disadvantage, and it is going to be ineligible if those items are already funded by another project. A suggestion, key personnel should be much more clear when you say in Turkish, anahtar uzman, key staff. So thank you very much for your suggestion. Another question concerns, so I employ people under the scope of the project. Can I transfer them to our companies which are under legal entity? So when I keep the target number, would I lose the incentive? So under the scope of people, I employ some people. Can I transfer them to my other companies, which are legal entities? So I keep the target, and would I lose the incentive? So has several companies, and there is a target set. If it is not for the applying company, then that might be a problem. Özlem Hanım, we are talking about a company with a legal entity that can submit one application only. So even if you have several facilities, you have to have one application. One legal entity shall make one application. So that should be taken into consideration. If the same person has different companies, he cannot transfer the employed people between his other companies. I mean, talking about different workplaces under one legal entity, there's a similar question. So under one legal entity, there are 19 workplaces registered at SSI. And so when I make an application, can these 19 enterprises benefit from the grant? So there are some enterprises within 19 which are younger than 1 year. So there's one legal entity, 19 workplaces, and some are older than 2 years in terms of having a legal entity, but some have a shorter history in terms of legal entity. So the mother company fulfilling the 2 years criteria would be sufficient. And the sub enterprises where people will be employed must be located in project provinces. This is an important requirement. Human resources cost us 120,000 euros and the machinery to be bought is 80,000 euros. Maybe this is a real case example. So given the situation for our medium scale company, the project budget is exceeded. HR 120,000, machinery 80,000. Medium scale and project budget is exceeded. By lowering the machinery cost, can we submit a proposal? So instead of 80,000, can we show the machinery as 60,000 euros in order to be able to meet the budget requirements? There is one machine, I think, that you have the problem with. It's possible. Well, I mean, we will see the cost of the machine as a whole, and we will see how much of it will be covered from the project budget, but explanations should be written accordingly. In the explanations and remarks part, we should see these details. So it's like making a revision. Another question comes, throughout the project duration, how many times can we introduce revisions? This is, I think, regarding the project, not the application. How many times can we introduce revisions throughout the project duration, and what will be the terms for the introduction of those revisions? Can we transfer budget between the budget items and the revised items? So we already provided answer to this question. We have an implementation guideline, and you will see those details in the implementation guideline that will be published. There will be a 6-monthly performance control, and there will be SSI controls on a monthly basis to see the actual numbers. So it's going to be standard approach. I will say maximum 2 revisions. Before our project is approved, during the evaluation process, if we have some shortcomings, do you tell us to fulfill those shortcomings? We realize that there are some shortcomings during the evaluation process. Before the approval, we see that there are shortcomings, and do we tell them, and do they have the chance to fulfill those shortcomings? Well, I can say that until the deadline, you can introduce revisions. I mean, before saying finish, before saying complete application, you can save it as draft, and you can introduce revisions, and you can review them under the scope of the replies you receive and the explanations you receive via the presentation. Well, it is important to have equal treatment. So individual applications need to be treated equally. We cannot turn to the applicants and tell them that they made a mistake or there are some shortcomings. This is a grant program, and we have call for proposals as a modality. So please be careful and check your own applications. Okay, Naz, so this is related to the answer you have provided recently, specific question. SME Development Agency, cost gap, there is an incentive provided through cost gap. So can the same person benefit from this project? This is a question that is parallel to what was asked before. So there is an employee funded by another project or by an EU program. So there is, it can be human resources, it can be machinery, equipment. There is a budget item funded by another project or by another resource. You cannot use our project to provide funding for that budget item. It is important that one item is funded by one resource. You can employ new people and you can make application for those new potential employees, and those can be supported by KAIS. Ayşegül Hanım, throughout 18 months, how are the salaries and wages that will be changing should be taken in under evaluation? Due to inflation, the high rate, there will be some changes. Yes, I understand. So the estimated budget is requested to be prepared, and then using the Central Bank of Turkey's currency exchange rate on the date of the application, we ask them to turn that to euros, and project budget should be indicated in euros. So the proposals will be in euro currency. So that will help us to, take into consideration the currency exchange rate increase. And also, over time, we are going to make the payments based on the progress made, the actual progress on the merits basis. So there is not going to be currency exchange income based on the increase of the currency exchange rate. So the foreign currency will be paid, so there will not be any income due to increase of foreign currency exchange rate. Okay, Caner Bey, a firm has headquarters in Istanbul, has 10 branches, 2,500 employees in total. Under the scope of this project, for one branch, we are going to file an application. In our branch, there are 120 employees. Should we apply as a large-scale enterprise or a smaller scale enterprise? Should we look at the overall, or are we going to consider the scale according to the 120 employees in the branch, because we are going to apply for that specific branch? So we receive similar questions from similar enterprises. So we expect the legal entity. The company should be a legal entity. So the application is going to be made by the legal entity, the mother company, not the branch. So of course, this is going to be a large scale company, because you said 2,500 employees in total. That will be taken as basis. Of course, I mean, it is important that we consider the location where the employment will take place. So that branch has to be in one of the 24 provinces, but we take into consideration the mother company when you file an application, and that will be large scale, not the branch. Ayşegül Hanım, according to legislation of Ministry of Labor and Social Security, 10% of Turkish national and not more than 10% of SUTPs can be employed. That is the limitation. We have some questions related to that. What would be your comments? So are we going to employ foreigners according to these criteria? So 10% is a general criteria, a general rule, but every work permit application will be submitted to DGILF of Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and a decision is taken after the application. Do not see this as a limitation. Depending on your needs, please make your plans. And that 10%, I assume you're not subject to 10%. Assume that you're not subject to 10%, and provide justifications to your applications. And when you submit your application to DG International Labor Force under ministry, that will be evaluated. Okay, Nasıl, if there are two companies on the same address, their tax IDs are different and they are legal entities, can they both make an application? So they have different tax IDs and they are legal entities. There are two companies in the same factory address. Can they both make an application? This is a very specific question. I think this is related to an area which is like an organized industrial zone, OIZ. The address is the same, but there are two separate legal entities in the same factory address. So it is enough that the company has a legal entity with its own tax ID number. It can submit application to the project, but joint or shared employment will not be acceptable. They have to have a separate employment, not joint. Okay, private company, unlimited company cannot make an application, already covered by my colleagues. So cafe, restaurant, so we are a company in this sector, and there is alcohol sale next to the food. Can we apply to the grant program? That is the question. Well, that is the not finance sector. That is one of those sectors which are not financed, but we have to check that. I mean, production of alcohol in any case is one of those sectors which are not funded, financed. Also sales not funded. Okay, so same question. Prohibited companies, and when we try to look at that screen, it is just empty. We can't see any information. So that is a problem. That's a technical problem, probably. So under the scope of the project for manufacturing and quality unit, employing some people, and also can we ask for software for the design unit, or should we be employing people to use the software for design? Caner Bey, okay, you can provide a reply. So this is related to employment and the units where those people will be employed. And regarding the continuity of the business, it has to be reasonable, it has to be logical, and I think this can be done. So employs people to quality and manufacturing unit, but requests software for the design unit. So it's a part of the same business activity. So I think this is reasonable. This sounds logical. So I think this can be done. And I submit this for your opinion. Well, of course, I mean, the sub-project should be considered as a whole, and departments, if departments are not so different in terms of software, in terms of employment, that can be possible. But I mean, we as a contracting authority, regarding the qualifications of the employees and the features of departments, we don't set any limits. So companies can employ people at any qualifications to any department that they want under the scope of the project. We want them to be relevant. We wouldn't want them to be completely irrelevant, but of course that is not a requirement.
Machinery and equipment to be bought for the investment have VAT exemption, but in ineligible costs, VAT is not supported as indicated. Which one should be taken into consideration? There is VAT exemption. So can you please elaborate on the VAT exemption, Ayşegül Hanım? While preparing the project budget, you have to prepare it excluding VAT, because through the grants, through the projects, VAT cannot be funded. If you want to benefit from VAT exemption as a beneficiary company after the contract is signed for the grant with us, then you will have to consult the relevant tax revenue office. Then you need to get the VAT exemption certificate from that office. So this is the end of the questions, nearly all of the questions. There were some replicated questions, repeated questions, maybe we skipped them, but so there is a general question. Why can't cooperatives benefit from this support? This is a general question. As a matter of fact, we can answer it as follows. In line with the FRIT and also under the scope of these employment supports, there are several programs implemented by different institutions, and instead of repeating one another, the programs are expected to complement each other. For example, for agriculture, there is a program of agriculture and credit cooperatives, and cost gap has different priorities where even the NACE codes have been determined. So our program is very comprehensive and inclusive, but for the cooperatives, there is another program implemented under the management of the development agencies. So the programs should not compete with each other, they should complement each other. So in our program, we focus on the privately owned companies, and it focuses on manufacturing and employment and service sectors are supported. There are similar questions, but it means they need some more clarifications. The headquarters of the company is one of the selected provinces, but the factory is physically exists in another province. Can we be within the scope of this grant? Actually, where the employment will be created is important. That has to be highlighted again. So wherever that employment is going to be created, that place should be one of the 24 selected project provinces. Instead of the owner of the company, or managing director or accountant manager or project manager, can they upload the application with their own phone number? We repeated that answer frequently, but this is one of the final questions that were received. Caner Bey, can you please explain it again? Actually, your sound is a little bit lower, so could you please adjust your sound? Of course, anyone, any authorized person of the company can submit the application. We don't expect the owner of the company to submit the application. As long as that person is authorized by the company, they can submit the application on behalf of the company. If the documents to be uploaded are distorted in the system, are the applicants going to be asked to provide documents again? For example, the documents are uploaded, but they cannot be opened, but the file is distorted. So will the applicant be asked to provide those documents again? At the administrative eligibility phase, maybe. At that time, it is important. Because those documents that may affect evaluation, if there is such a technical problem, they may be asked to provide them again. Nazanım, for employment, if they are not refugees, but there are foreigners in Turkey, is there any problem employing those foreigners, but they are not refugees? In our project, the definition of refugee includes Syrians under temporary protection and other refugees that are under international protection. In our case, the Formal Employment Creation Project grant program, Turkish citizens and these refugees should be employed in a balanced manner. This is our objective. So if you prepare your project in this scope, you can successfully implement it. Özlem Hanım, can we also add one point? Refugees under temporary protection and international protection are a target group for employment. I mean, in Turkey, because of different pieces of legislation, foreigners employed as per legislation with a residence permit, for example, are not covered by this grant program. Okay, the machine that I purchased, by purchasing the investment incentive support, I will not benefit from the VAT exemption. So will it prevent me from buying that machine under the scope of this project? But you already purchased, so it can't be possible. But if you are going to buy it after the approval of your project, purchasing of machines and employment can be realized. So as of the approval of your project or before the approval of the project, such expenses you will make will not be covered by the grant. Unfortunately, it is important to highlight it. So Caner Bey, I think you answered this question. So at the headquarters there are 2,000 people, but in the branch there are 120 people. Is it large scale or small scale enterprise? We could not understand it clearly. Actually, place of application is important. Maybe you will repeat your answer. Yeah, that is a large scale because legal entity is taken as the basis because the number of employees in the main company is 1,200, while scaling the enterprises, we take the number of the employees into consideration, not the turnover. So enterprises employing equal to or more than 250 employees are large-scale enterprises. As regards the activity, subject matter of the activity and place of the activity, while preparing your project, if it is in one of the 24 provinces, that won't be a problem. That's right. These are all related to the projects. I think we came to the end of the questions. So price difference, there's a question about the price difference, VAT, and documents uploaded to the system. I think we finalized it. I think we answered all these questions. There are no more questions. So there are similar and repeated questions. So Özlem Hanım, let's say we should make some reminders to the applicants. While submitting your applications, you are entering your phone number, but please also add your email address, even though you are just saving your application as draft, because for announcement, for reminders in the future, unfortunately, we can't reach you through telephone numbers. We will get back to you through email. So please enter your email addresses to us. And we are expecting you to finalize your application that are in the draft format now as soon as possible, because we don't want to have our workload at the last minute, because there may be some technical problems or other problems due to the busy schedule. So it is better if you just complete your application as soon as possible. And the recordings of this meeting and all the other recordings will be published on our website. One has already been published under the call for proposals, under how to apply section. You can find this. And so our presentations are also published under the call for proposal tab. And there are also frequently asked questions. There are 40 questions there. You can check and review those questions. And also, there is just one question added about budget. It is not suitable for you to just write down collectively like 10 or 20 employees, but you have to indicate the budget items for each and every of these employees to be hired. And that question and answer part is really clarifying the situation. And if you have any questions, you can send your questions to case@kalkınma.com.tr. We will try to get back to you about your questions. So thank you very much for your presence here with us. I hope this meeting has been fruitful for you. And if you have any further questions, please reach out to us, contact us, or you can join the next meeting. We're going to discuss the same topic, and we're going to also show you the practice based on the example, logging into the system. And if you still have remaining questions, or if you got stuck when you try to log into the platform, please contact us. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you. Have a good day.